Something's breathing down there. The bulb above him flickered like a dying eye, swaying slightly, though there was no breeze. Caleb stood at the top of the basement stairs, staring into the darkness that clawed back up at him. He hadn't touched the knob. He hadn't, but the door had opened on its own, and something in the house had gone quiet when it did. 15 years. 15 years since he'd even looked at this door. He used to run past it as a kid, hand over his eyes, because his father's voice would echo in his head. If you hear anything under the house, you do not open that door. You come straight to me. Do you understand me, Caleb? And he'd nod. Always. Because his dad had never said it like a joke. He said it like the kind of thing that could kill you. Now his father was gone. A sudden heart attack in the middle of the night. No goodbye, no note, no explanation. Just silence. And a week later the basement door opened. Caleb took a step back. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was stupid. He was a grown man, 23, living alone in the old family house now. What was he doing, letting some ancient childhood fear make him sweat like this? He turned to walk away, and stopped. That sound, scratching, from beneath the floorboards. His breath caught. He'd been hearing it for days now. At first, he told himself it was rats. But rats didn't whisper. He pulled out his phone. Dead. It had been fully charged 20 minutes ago. The scratching got louder, rhythmic now, like breathing with claws. Caleb turned back to the door. It creaked slightly in the hinges, swinging open just enough to reveal the first 2 wooden steps descending into pitch. No light switch. Just the bulb dangling at the bottom, flickering weakly. That bulb hadn't been replaced in 20 years. Yet somehow it was on. He told himself he'd just take a peek, 1 step, maybe 2, then go back upstairs, lock the door, call someone. He stepped down. The air changed immediately. It was heavy, cold, not like the rest of the house. This was deeper, wetter. The smell was worse, like mold, blood, and wet stone. Something old, forgotten. Each creak of the steps sounded like a scream being held in. By the time he reached the bottom, the bulb stopped flickering. It was just dim now, like it knew someone was watching. The basement hadn't changed much. The old furnace still sat in the corner, covered in rust and cobwebs. Boxes of things he didn't recognize, old clothes, baby toys, some paintings. Turned to the wall, but something was different. The back wall. He swore there had never been a door there, a small wooden one. No handle, just a slit wide enough for fingers to pry into. It was maybe 4 feet tall, and it was open. Caleb's throat tightened. He stepped forward slowly, not wanting to disturb the silence, but it was already too late. The scratching started. Again, from behind the small door, faster now, desperate, then a voice, muffled, faint. "Caleb!" He staggered back. His heel struck something. He turned and saw it, a small wooden chair, but it wasn't the chair that made his knees buckle. It was what was sitting in it, a bundle of blankets, breathing. The breathing wasn't human, too shallow, too wrong. He reached out. His hands moved on their own. He peeled the blanket away slowly, layer by layer. And then he saw it. A face. His face, smaller, pale. The mouth too wide, the skin stretched tight like wax over bone. But unmistakably him. Its eyes opened, and they were his father's eyes. Caleb staggered back in horror, knocking over a box of old photo albums. The thing just stared at him from the chair, smiling now, a horrible, broken smile. Then, in his father's voice. "I tried to bury it, Caleb. I warned you." The bulb above exploded. Darkness. Then the sound of the wooden door slamming shut behind him. He screamed and ran toward it, banging with his fists, but it wouldn't open. From behind him, a whisper. Closer this time. We waited so long. When the light returned, faint, red, and pulsing from somewhere deep beneath the floor, Caleb turned around and saw the hole. In the far wall, behind where the furnace used to be, a narrow tunnel. dug into the earth, just big enough to crawl through, and inside it, something moved. No, someone. Long, pale fingers dragging across the dirt. A shape, thin, crawling slowly like it was savoring the approach. Then came the voice again. Not his father's this time, a child's. You forgot me, Caleb, but I never forgot you. The air turned electric. His skin felt like it was blistering. He backed away, heart pounding. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be happening. Then he remembered the dream from 3 nights ago. He'd woken up sobbing, nails dug into his palms. In the dream, a child had been crying behind a wall, and his father had been there holding him, whispering, "Don't answer it. Don't let it out. Please, Caleb." But he'd gone toward the voice in the dream anyway, and when he did, the crying stopped and something laughed. Now, standing in this nightmare, Caleb understood. This wasn't just a haunting. It wasn't a ghost. It was a secret, buried here, by his family, maybe generations deep, and somehow it was tied to him. He turned back to the wooden door and saw something scrawled into it now, a message, fresh, as if written in blood. You opened it. Now it's yours. Behind him, the crawling had stopped. Something was standing just at the edge of the tunnel. Watching, he didn't want to look. He looked anyway, and what stood there was himself. But wrong. Skin like cracked porcelain. Eyes, burning with something ancient, and a grin that stretched too far. Then it spoke softly. I've waited long enough. Let's finish what he started. The room began to shake. Dirt poured from the ceiling. The tunnel widened, and from behind the creature, others were crawling out. Children. Pale. Silent. All of them. With his face, Caleb screamed and turned to the stairs, sprinting upward, slamming into the door, which opened easily now. He fell into the hallway, slamming the door shut behind him. Silence. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of his own ragged breathing. Then, knock, knock, from the other side, twice, slow, deliberate. He backed away. Then a voice whispered through the door. He gave us to the dark, but now, you're the light. Caleb collapsed against the wall, shaking. He didn't know what his father had done, but something had been locked beneath this house for decades, and now it was awake, and it remembered him. The journal in the fireplace. Caleb didn't sleep. He tried. He lay in bed with the lights on, covers pulled up to his chin like a child, staring at the ceiling, every creak in the old house a gunshot in his ears. The knocking at the basement door hadn't returned, but the words had etched themselves into his mind like burns. He gave us to the dark, but now, you're the light. What did that even mean? Who were they, and why did they look like him? His hand still trembled from the memory of those things, their faces, his face stretched and broken, like echoes warped by time. He wanted to believe it had been a dream, but the dirt on his jeans said otherwise, the bruises on his shoulder, the dried blood in his nostrils. This was real, and whatever his father had kept buried under this house, it wasn't finished. By morning, Caleb made a decision. He had to know what his father had been hiding. The funeral had been so fast, so cold. His dad hadn't left a will. Just the house, a few old photos, and one locked drawer in the study. Caleb had never dared to open it while his father was alive. But now, he forced the drawer open with a screwdriver. Inside was a single key, old, blackened by age, and a note. Faded, torn at the edges. If something wakes, burn everything. Start with the fireplace. Do not go to the church. Don't trust Pastor Enoch. And don't listen to the voices, not even hers. Caleb read it 3 times, heart pounding. Hers, he didn't know what was worse, that his father had expected this, or that someone else, a woman, was involved in it. And what the hell did start with the fireplace mean? He went to the living room. The old stone fireplace hadn't been used in years, covered in cobwebs, dust thick as velvet. He knelt, inspecting the brickwork. Nothing. Then he noticed something strange. One of the bricks near the base had a small symbol carved into it. A circle, with a line through the center. He pressed it. Click! The brick loosened. Behind it, wrapped in cloth and tied with rotting twine, was an old leather journal. His father's name was burned into the cover, James Fee Harrow. Caleb sat on the floor, his legs weak, and opened it. The first page read, "There were 3 of us. Me, Enoch, and Claire. We made a mistake, and I buried the sin under this house." He read for hours. Each word clawed deeper than the last. The entries were erratic, panicked, some written with shaking hands, ink smudged by tears or blood. Peace. By peace, a horrifying truth took shape. In 1999, his father had been involved in something ritualistic. The journal spoke of a child, not born, but called. Summoned, James wrote, during a night of shared grief and divine delusion. Enoch, the local pastor, had convinced them it would be salvation, that they could pull light into the world by invoking a sacred being through bloodline. Binding. Claire, a woman Caleb didn't recognize, was the final piece. "She carried the seed," James wrote, "but it was my blood that opened the door." Caleb's hands went cold. His blood. They had summoned something using him. As a baby. One line kept repeating in different entries, scrawled like a mantra. One was born. The rest will follow, if the vessel remains alive. He slammed the journal shut, breath ragged. He was the vessel. That's why they had his face. That's why his father was afraid of the basement. Because the thing down there, the one that looked like him, wasn't a ghost. It was a copy, a failed twin, a spiritual infection. And now that his father was dead, the seal had broken. Caleb ran to the basement door, still shut, but the air was colder, like something was pressing against the other side. He placed his hand on the wood. Nothing. Then thump, one knock. Then silence. He backed away, heart slamming in his throat. There was only one person still alive who could explain any of this, Pastor Enoch. The journal had said not to trust him. But Caleb didn't see any other choice. He grabbed his coat and headed for the old church just outside town. The church hadn't changed since he was a boy. Towering and crooked, nestled between dying trees, its steeple leaning slightly like. It was trying to hear something underground. Enoch was still there, older now, thinner. His skin hung loose on his frame like wet cloth. When he saw Caleb, his face paled. "You shouldn't be here," Enoch whispered. "I found the journal," Caleb said. "Tell me what happened, all of it." The old man shook his head. "You shouldn't have gone into the basement." "I didn't choose to," Caleb snapped. "The door opened by itself." Enoch flinched. "It started then." They sat in the back pew. The church was empty, but Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that someone was hiding behind every pillar. Enoch finally spoke. "We thought we were doing God's work. Claire lost her baby, your mother had just died, and your father, he was broken. I convinced them we could bring healing, that we could draw a new soul into the world through purified grief. You were trying to make a child." Enoch looked down. "No, we were trying to make a guardian, a being of light, but it didn't come as light. It came as you." Caleb's stomach turned. "You're saying you summoned something, and it came wearing my face?" Enoch nodded. "We didn't realize what we'd done until it started speaking in your voice, calling for the dead, calling for the others." Caleb stared at him, rage and fear swirling. "Why didn't you kill it? We tried," Enoch whispered. "But you can't kill what isn't alive. You can only bury it." Then something hit the stained glass window. Hard. They both jumped. A long crack ran through the image of an angel. Enoch stood slowly. "They've found you. What do they want?" "Completion," Enoch said. "You're the vessel. If they take you, the rest will rise. Whatever your father sealed, it's not alone anymore." Suddenly Caleb heard it again. His name, whispered through the church walls, but this time it was a woman's voice. "Caleb." It was soft, familiar. Enoch's face went white. "Don't listen to her." "Who is it?" Caleb asked. Enoch grabbed his coat. Claire, or what's left of her. She hears you now. They all do. You opened the door. The lights above flickered. Caleb turned to the altar, and there, standing in the shadows, was a woman, gaunt, grey-eyed, drenched in black water. Her smile was jagged and wrong. You were. Meant for us, Caleb. We waited inside the walls. Now, we'll wear you right. Then she vanished. Enoch pushed him toward the door. Go home, burn the journal, seal the fireplace, and for the love of God, do not go into the tunnel. What tunnel? The one behind the furnace. Caleb froze. It's already open, he whispered. Enoch looked like he might collapse. Then you need to run. I'm not running, Caleb snapped. I want answers. I want this over. The pastor grabbed his arm. Then you better be ready to bury more than secrets, boy. You'll need to bury yourself, or become what your father tried to stop. Back at the house, night had already fallen. The wind howled like a voice just out of range. Caleb opened the front door and froze. Muddy footprints, small, bare, leading from the basement door to the stairs. They were already inside. The thing wearing my face, Caleb didn't move. Not at first. The muddy footprints led up the stairs, toward the second floor, toward the room where he slept, where his father once slept. The air was thick now, like breathing through soaked cloth. He gripped the base of the stair rail. It was slick with moisture, and the smell, rotting earth like something freshly dug or unburied. Caleb reached into the umbrella stand by the door and pulled out a rusted crowbar. It had been his dad's. Still bore flecks of paint and dried black oil. The footprints were small, child-sized, but uneven, like whatever made them walked wrong or didn't know how to. He climbed the stairs slowly, each creak like a scream in the silence. At the top, the hallway stretched in both directions, cloaked in shadow. The footprints ended at his bedroom door. It was ajar. From inside he heard breathing. Not soft, not human. Something wet, struggling, as if lungs were learning how to work. Caleb's pulse beat in his ears. He pushed the door open and froze. There, crouched at the edge of the bed, was himself, but not quite. Its skin was too pale. Veins too dark, spider-webbing along the cheeks. Its eyes were wrong, fully black like glass over endless water, lips cracked, peeling like they'd been stitched shut and then forced open. It looked up and smiled. "Hi," it rasped. Then something moved under the bed. Caleb stumbled back, swinging the crowbar wildly. The thing just watched, head tilted like a curious dog. Then it laughed, low, broken, like a child trying to mimic sound. "I wore your name before," it said. "But Daddy wouldn't let me keep it. He tried to burn me, but I stayed." "What? Are you?" Caleb whispered. It grinned wider. "I'm the first breath you didn't take. I'm the scream your mother died swallowing. I'm the other you, and I'm not alone anymore." Then it sank into the floor, bones cracking, skin stretching unnaturally as it melted into the boards like water being absorbed. Gone. Caleb backed down the stairs, gripping the crowbar so tightly his knuckles bled. His thoughts were a storm of static. He couldn't stay here, not without knowing what he was up against. He ran to the study and grabbed the journal again, flipping to the final entries. The handwriting had grown nearly illegible. Frantic loops, smears of ash, and finger-shaped bloodstains between the lines. But one line stood out. "If it escapes, follow the old tunnel. Find the burial stone. Seal it with your own blood. It's the only way to end it." Caleb made his way to the basement. Each step down felt heavier, as if the air resisted him. The furnace loomed in the dark, humming like a breathing thing. Beside it, the crumbled brick wall had opened wider, exposing a black tunnel carved into the rock. It hadn't been there yesterday, and the smell, sweet rot, like fruit left in the sun too long. He raised the crowbar and stepped inside. The tunnel walls were smooth, wet. Ancient symbols were carved into them, circles, eyes, open mouths. each one filled with dried wax or bone dust. As Caleb walked, the air thickened, and then he heard it again. Her voice. Caleb. Baby, it's so dark in here. His mother's voice. Soft. Warm. They told me you'd come. They said I could see you again if I asked nicely. He froze. Mom? He whispered. From the shadows ahead, a shape moved, a woman naked and pale, hair hanging like drowned seaweed, her face familiar, but her eyes were hollow and her mouth stitched shut with red thread. And she was floating. She opened her arms, like she wanted to hug him. He took a step forward, then stopped because he saw what lay behind her, dozens of others, crawling on the tunnel walls like insects, limbs bent wrong, each one wearing a face he recognized. Old classmates, relatives, people from town who had vanished, every one of them smiling. Caleb backed away slowly. No, he whispered. You're not my mother! The stitched woman screamed without opening her mouth. The sound tore through his head, 1,000 children wailing inside a bell. The others charged forward. Caleb turned and ran. The tunnel shifted. Walls moved. Doors appeared where there were none. Caleb turned left, then right, then a door, wooden, ancient, covered in symbols. In the center, a stone slab. Just as the journal had described, he pushed the door open. Inside was a small circular chamber. In the center, a hole in the ground, surrounded by scorched candles, and beside it, a single rock marked with a bloody handprint, carved above it, what? Was split must stay halved. Caleb stepped forward. Behind him the things were coming, crawling, moaning, calling his name. He raised the crowbar, stared at the stone. Blood. It needed blood. He didn't hesitate. He slashed his palm and slammed it against the slab. The stone lit up, burning red. The ground shook. The tunnel behind him collapsed with a roar, trapping the creatures inside. And then dire silence. He fell to his knees, breathing hard, alone in the dark. Had he done it? Was it over? He pulled his phone from his pocket. No signal, no light. Just one new photo in his gallery. He hadn't taken any pictures. He opened it. It was a selfie of him, smiling. But he hadn't smiled like that in years. And behind his eyes, something watched. He looked at his reflection in the phone, screen, and for a moment, his face shifted, just a flicker, but it was there. I think it followed me out. The sun was rising when Caleb crawled out of the tunnel. The earth had split open behind the basement furnace. Rubble and soot coated his clothes. His torn hand throbbed, blood soaked into the cuff of his hoodie, but he was alive, and it was over, wasn't it? The house was silent again. Still. Too still. Caleb limped through the hallways, past broken picture, frames and memories. His father's voice whispered in his head, warnings, muttered prayers, and that final unfinished sentence. Don't ever go down there, Caleb. That thing, it isn't. He closed the basement door, locked it, nailed it shut, then taped the key under the floorboard by instinct like his dad once had. He didn't eat, didn't shower. Just curled up on the living room couch, crowbar across his chest like a child clutching a blanket. Sleep came eventually, but not rest. He dreamed of dirt in his mouth, of drowning in cold soil, of screams muffled by thread. He saw a face, his own, but lifeless, eyes glazed over, grinning wider than skin should allow, then a whisper against his ear, "You bled for me. That means I'm part of you now." He woke up screaming. Tuesday, Caleb packed a bag and left the house. He went to the nearest motel 15 miles out. It was cheap, stained, and smelled like bleach, but the walls didn't whisper, and the mirrors only showed him. He stayed there 2 days, tried to research the house, but found nothing. No reports, no legends. The town had kept it quiet. Or buried it. Even the old newspaper archives at the library were missing anything before 1984. His dad had lived there alone since then. alone, except for whatever that had been. On the third night, Caleb got hungry and drove to the diner down the road. He hadn't eaten real food in days. The smell of bacon and coffee nearly brought him to tears. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes, smiled when he walked in. "Long night, sweetheart?" she asked, pouring him coffee. "More like a long life," he muttered. She gave him a strange look but didn't press. Caleb ordered pancakes and eggs. He ate in silence, eyes scanning the people around him. 2 truckers at the counter, a teenager scrolling on her phone, a man in a suit near the window. Normal, safe. Until he noticed the mirror behind the counter and realized something was wrong. His reflection wasn't eating. It just sat there, staring at him, expressionless. Then it smiled. Not just a grin, a full, unnatural stretch of the mouth, teeth exposed, skin creasing in the wrong places. Caleb dropped his fork. The waitress glanced. "Over. You okay, hun?" He looked again. His reflection was normal, mimicking him, smiling politely like nothing happened. That night, he didn't sleep. He kept the lights on. But at 3:13 a.m., the TV flicked on by itself. Static buzzing, screen glowing. A single word flashed on it: home. He checked out before dawn. He didn't know where to go, just knew he couldn't stay. But when he stepped outside, something was waiting on his car windshield, a photo, one he'd never seen before. In it, he stood in front of his house, smiling. Behind him, his dad. But his dad had died weeks ago, and the timestamp on the photo said 2:44 a.m. Last night, Caleb drove until his hands cramped. Ended up parked on the side of a rural road, trees overhead, silence. He got out, breathed the cold air, tried to steady himself. Maybe he was hallucinating. Maybe the thing underground had done something to his mind. He pulled out his phone and opened the voice memos app. Hit record. He needed to say it out loud, to document it. "Okay," he whispered. "My name is Caleb Mercer. I'm 29. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I work in IT. I'm sane." He paused. Deep breath. "But there's something wearing my face, something that was trapped under my family's house, and I let it out. I bled for it. I think it's part of me now." A rustle behind him. He turned. Nothing but trees. He turned back. His phone was still recording, but the screen now read, "Recording to Caleb, other." And a second voice whispered into the speaker, "Stop telling them lies." Panic surged. He got back in the car and drove straight to the nearest town. Booked another motel, threw the phone in the sink, left it recording. Then he sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his reflection in the cracked TV screen. "Who are you?" he whispered. The reflection blinked and mouthed something. Caleb leaned closer. The words formed clearly just behind the glass. "I'm who you would have been if you hadn't survived." It was a memory, or a vision, a hospital room. His mother, screaming, a second heartbeat on the monitor, a twin but not a full one. Not whole, something wrong, something unfinished. His father's voice, "Don't tell him ever." Another whisper, "We buried it. It never cried, but it watched." Caleb staggered back from the TV. The phone was still recording in the bathroom. Static hissed through the speaker. Then, "You didn't seal it, you set it free, and now you'll never be alone again." Later that night, Caleb tried to sleep. He finally closed his eyes around 4 a.m. But when he opened them, he was in a different room, his childhood bedroom. Everything was dusty, old toys on the shelves, his old Batman blanket. He couldn't move. A shadow stood in the doorway. It looked just like him, but not really. Its skin shimmered like oil. Its eyes were pits. It walked to the bed, leaned down and whispered in his ear, "We used to share a body. Now we'll share a life. You get the light, I get the dark." Then it slid back into the mirror. Caleb woke up in a cold sweat. The motel room looked the same, but the mirror was fogged. He hadn't taken a shower. He walked to it, wiped the glass. His reflection blinked a beat too slow and smiled. "You're not supposed to be here." By the time Caleb returned to town, 3 people were already dead. The first was the waitress from the diner. Her body had been found behind the counter. No blood, no wounds, just smiling. Her lips split open at the corners, eyes wide, dried tears streaked down both cheeks, like she died in the middle of laughing or screaming. The second was Officer Jensen, the cop who'd once warned Caleb not to go poking around the old neighborhoods alone. He was discovered locked in his own patrol car, engine running, lights off. Mouth sewn shut, badge melted into his chest. And the third, Caleb couldn't bring himself to say her name. Nina, his ex. He hadn't spoken to her in over a year. They weren't close. But she'd called him 2 nights ago. The same night he saw his reflection smile at him, she'd said, "You don't know what you've done, Caleb." He thought it was a prank, maybe a wrong number. But now she was gone too. Her apartment. Door ripped from its hinges, phone still recording, no sign of forced entry. Only one thing was left behind. A drawing taped to her fridge, 2 boys in a crib, one smiling, the other faceless. He sat in his car outside her apartment complex, knuckles. White on the wheel? In the rearview mirror, his reflection didn't match his breathing. Every breath he took, it held just a second longer, like it was waiting, measuring him. The next day, Caleb went to the county archives. Again, alone. He had to know the truth about his dad, the house, the thing in the basement. Whatever he'd let out, this time he bypassed the public records and went deeper, where the microfiche reels and old newspaper clippings were kept, yellowed, brittle, forgotten. He found a single article from 1994, no headline, just a short, redacted story about a stillborn birth in a local home. No names, no pictures, but Caleb recognized the address. His house, and scribbled in pencil on the back, nearly faded away. Second boy survived, but what crawled out of the mother wasn't a boy. Caleb's stomach turned. His hands trembled as he turned the page. Behind it, glued into the file, folder was a child's drawing, crayon, rough lines, a house, 2 stick figures, one labeled me, the other not me. On the way out of the archives, the lights flickered. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Every step echoed behind. Him! And then a second set echoed just after his. He ran. That night, Caleb checked into a different motel. He took a pair of scissors and stood in front of the mirror for an hour, watched himself, tested it, lifted his hand. So did the reflection. Turned his head. Matched perfectly. But then he blinked, and the reflection didn't. It smiled again. This time it mouthed something, not a whisper, a message. The more you try to run, the more real I become. Caleb snapped. He punched the mirror. Glass shattered. Blood ran from his knuckles. His reflection screamed silently as shards rained down, but he hadn't made a sound. He went back to the house the next morning. He didn't know why. It just pulled at him, like gravity. The front door was ajar. Floorboards creaked like bones beneath his feet. In the living room, a fire burned in the fireplace, even though he hadn't lit it in weeks. And above it, a photo had been nailed to the wall, a family photo he'd never seen. His father, his mother, who died giving birth to him, and 2 boys, one in his mother's arms, one crouched in the shadows by her feet, black-eyed, smiling too wide. He turned to run, but the hallway warped, stretched like taffy. The walls bled, the door slammed shut. Behind him, he screamed, pounded on the wood. Then a voice, low, scratchy, almost childlike, from the dark. It was supposed to be me. I was born first, but he chose you. Caleb turned. A figure stood at the far end of the hall, his height, his build, but the face twisted, pale, lips torn at the corners, no whites in the eyes, only endless dark. The thing stepped closer. Each footstep echoed like a hammer in Caleb's. A chest. "You're not real," Caleb whispered. The thing tilted its head. "You're not whole," it said. Then it lunged. Caleb woke up in the basement, chained to the wall, blood on his shirt, rust in his mouth. duct tape around one leg. He wasn't. Alone, across the room, a body slumped against the other wall, his father's body, still dead, still rotted, but something had written on the concrete in dried blood. He tried to protect you, but I was always closer than he knew. A mirror hung crooked above his father's corpse. In the reflection, Caleb saw two of himself. One chained, one standing beside the body, smiling. It stepped forward. The real-world Caleb screamed, yanked at the chains. The reflection. Cale pulled something from the wall, a needle, old, thick, bone-colored. He whispered through the mirror, "Your body." "My turn." The reflection stepped through the glass, but Caleb was ready. He lunged forward, broke his thumb, yanking it out of the cuff, and grabbed the crowbar from the floor. He swung. The reflection screamed, not in fear, in anger. But it wasn't fast enough. Caleb shattered the mirror. Glass rained down. Blood sprayed. A howl echoed through the basement, high and animalistic. Then silence. The chains were gone. The door was open. And in his hand, the needle reel. He didn't know how he got out, or how long he walked, but when he stumbled onto the main road, a trucker nearly hit him. They called the cops, asked him what happened. He just laughed until his lungs hurt, and whispered, "I think I just killed my brother." That night, Caleb sat in the motel room again. New town, new name. He burned the clothes, burned the house deed, buried the needle in the desert 30 miles away. He stared into the new mirror. No smiles, no tricks, just him. He breathed. Then the lights flickered. The mirror fogged up, and one word appeared, drawn by an unseen hand. Almost. The door that never stayed locked. Caleb didn't sleep after the word appeared on the mirror. Almost. It faded after a minute, but he could still see the condensation line where it had been drawn, like a scar in the glass. No matter how many times he wiped the surface, the shape of the letters still faintly showed, like they'd been carved into the mirror's soul. He packed his bag by sunrise, threw out the toothbrush, the razor, anything with a reflection. But something followed him. Not a shadow, not a whisper, something deeper. A pressure behind his eyes, a hum under his skin, like he wasn't the only one inside anymore. 3 days passed. 3 towns, 3 new motel rooms, and in every one, the same pattern repeated. The mirrors fogged. Over when he wasn't looking. Drawings appeared in dust or condensation. The lights flickered when he tried to sleep. And every reflection of himself looked too calm. He started talking to them. The reflections. "Why me?" he asked once, staring into a cracked motel mirror. The reflection didn't answer, but it smiled. Only that, like it knew something he didn't. Caleb called a priest, an old man in rural Nevada who claimed to deal with the other side, the kind of man with yellowed teeth and crosses carved into his belt. He didn't even let Caleb finish his story before cutting him off. "You're marked. Something was born. A wrong, not possessed, not haunted, shared." Caleb asked what that meant. The old man stared through him. "Your life was never fully yours." He had to go back, not to the house. That place was gone, condemned after he called in an anonymous tip about a sinkhole and gas leak. They sealed it, bulldozed it a week later. But something had survived. Something not tied to the place. Tied to him. One night he woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. His hand was wrapped around the needle again, the same bone-colored one. Even though he'd buried it miles away, even though he burned it, he dropped it on the motel carpet and backed. Away, breathing hard. It was still warm, still wet. Something shimmered on its tip, like blood that hadn't dried in years. The reflection in the mirror whispered, "Let me in. You're tired. I can carry it." Caleb smashed the mirror with the motel lamp, didn't sleep again for 2 nights. On the 4th night, he stood on the roof of the building, looking down. It wasn't suicide. It was a question. Would the thing inside him die if he did, or would it just wake up inside the next mirror? His feet hovered over the ledge. The wind howled, and then a voice behind him, soft, almost human. "If you die, I win." He turned. It was him. But the other version, the one that had crawled through mirrors. The one with too wide eyes and skin too pale. The smile was gone now. In its place was something worse. Pity. Dad was supposed to choose me. I was first. But he saw what I was and locked me away. You got the life. I got the silence. And now, I want my turn, Caleb whispered. You're not real. But even he didn't believe it anymore. The thing stepped forward. It doesn't matter if I'm real. What matters is that you are. It held up the needle. Give me the body. You rest. I'll live. I'll smile better than you ever did. Caleb shook his head. No. He stepped down from the ledge. Not this time. He left that town that night, drove for hours, until he saw the sign, a small wooden one on the side of the highway. Weathered, splintered, the birth house, an abandoned midwife's home from the 1930s, shut down after a fire, rumored to be haunted. Locals whispered that babies born there never came out right. He didn't know why he stopped, only that something pulled him there. Inside, the air was thick, mold, ash, rot. He wandered through empty hallways until he reached a room with no windows and a stone basin in the floor, like a well, but wider, deeper, etched into the stone in something darker than time, for the unwanted. He knew what to do. He pulled the needle from his coat pocket, the same one that always came back. He held it over the basin. His hand trembled, and then, from the shadows behind him, "Don't!" The thing stood there again, but this time it looked like a child, small, 6 years old maybe, same eyes, same too wide smile, barefoot, pale and crying. "I'm not evil," it said. "I'm just lonely." Caleb knelt, his heart cracked, because in that moment he saw it, not as a monster but a boy. A broken thing that never got held, never got named, a shadow born of fear and neglect, a reflection of everything his father had buried. But some things aren't meant to be saved. "I'm sorry," Caleb whispered, and dropped the needle into the basin. The reaction was instant. A scream exploded from the walls, not from the boy, but from the very bones of the building. The air turned black. The room tilted. Shadows burst like flames. The boy screamed once, not in pain but in betrayal. "You promised to love me." "I never promised," Caleb said. But maybe he should have. The basin cracked open, like the earth itself splitting, and the shadow boy was sucked in, not dragged, not pulled, but accepted, like he belonged there, like he always had. Then silence. The walls stopped shaking. The house stood still, and Caleb was alone again. He left before dawn, didn't look back. The house collapsed a week later. No storm, no fire, just gone, like it had never been there at all. Caleb moved across the country, changed his name, got a job where there were no mirrors, no reflections, no shadows too long. But sometimes, when the lights flicker, when the fog gathers on glass, when he sees a child playing alone by a dark pond, he stops, listens, and he remembers his father's last words. "Never open the basement. There are things born in silence that never forget. And sometimes the ghost you're running from was supposed to be your brother." End.